Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40% Better podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the things that I've seen cause so many leadership problems over the years is the difference in interpretation between philosophical perspectives and execution. And we use metaphors a lot, so I'll frame this for you. To a degree, humans appreciate predictability. We don't like perfect everything predictable. Otherwise, movies would be really, really boring. We like twists and plot twists and things that are surprises. So there's a gradient of predictability. Math is eminently predictable. There is a set of rules and processes and systems with math. And when I say what is 2 plus 2, you're going to say 4 because everybody understands the systems and the processes. Now, yes, there are corner cases where 2 plus 2 might not equal 4 for some values of 2 if you're using a spreadsheet. And this is one of these, kind of logic things people use. Well, if you do 2.4 plus 2.4 in a spreadsheet that rounds to whole numbers, it will look like 2 plus 2 equals 5. Great. Okay. And even there, once you understand the detail, you understand the system, you understand the process, you recognize how that comes out within the guidelines of the rule set. This makes math very, very predictable. Leadership, on the other hand, we have a series of principles about how to be good leaders. Unfortunately, for the most part, what we don't have is consistent, repeatable systems to achieve those principles. And this is where the problem lies. And this is also where the opportunity lies for people that are in leadership roles or people who want to have leadership roles, is once they start to adopt these consistent, repeatable processes. And yes, that is my cat who wants to be part of the conversation. Once you start to adopt these consistent, repeatable processes, then it becomes very easy to get consistent, repeatable, beneficial outcomes from those processes because you can start to look at them and have conversations about when, where, and how things either work really, really well and we want more of this, or it falls apart and we want less. And one of the things that I realized over the course of running software teams for a couple of decades is that when I was implementing consistent, repeatable processes with my teams, they consistently got better at having psychological safety, at ownership of what we were doing, individual ownership of the stuff that was happening, and ultimately productivity. Oh, and by the way, our churn went down. People were happier. And it was because I was doing things that worked well for them. I had an underlying framework and I had a set of consistent, repeatable processes that allowed that to happen, right? And where I could actually go in and adjust knobs and levers and make things happen within the team to produce the kinds of results that made the team very, very high performing. What I noticed from my peers was they didn't have that kind of system. They didn't have that kind of process. They didn't have the mental models that I was using that allowed me to get there. And in looking around, I noticed that teams that perform very, very, very well, they have a library of consistent, repeatable processes that they operate with. And this is what allows them to be high performing, is that they have habits that support individuals and the team at being very, very high performing. And at the same time, they don't impinge on creativity. As I was working on this problem, one of the things that I realized, which is kind of ironic, is that for years I've considered myself to be very creative and very freewheeling and even cowboy at times about solving problems. And yet, when I really look at that, I realize that the only reason I'm able to be successful, despite my thinking, oh, I'm being, wild and crazy and creative and free thinking, is I've got a very strong base layer of systems and processes that actually support my ability to be creative and to be free thinking and to be able to solve problems. It's not that I'm actually really in the real world super cowboy. When I really look at it with a very dispassionate perspective, it's only because I've got all these systems and all these processes that I just take for granted, that are autopiloted, right? Because I've been doing them for years and years and years. This is the beauty of having great systems and processes. Nobody questions in the world of math addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, algebra, percentages, none of that, because we understand the rule sets. It's incredibly predictable. This is why data analytics is such a comfortable field for many people, because very, very predictable outcomes, because math is all about predictability. This is also why for some people that area is incredibly boring, because they don't feel like they have the creativity that they want. Okay, people are different, you know. When you have consistent, repeatable processes, you can be an amazing leader. And no, it is not boring. There's a very high degree of freedom. You know, Jocko Willink does great talks about leadership, and he talks about discipline equals freedom. And I totally get that. Systems and processes actually equal freedom just the same way. Many of the things that Jocko has talked about, he's got this amazing 20,000 foot view or 10,000 foot view perspective. He has a philosophical perspective. And oftentimes the ground level baby step way to achieve that isn't built in. And I get why. It's because Jocko and the people that are close to him assume that everybody understands what this thing means. And so they don't break it down into little tiny baby steps. I've looked at things a little bit differently and tried to really understand how to get what I was doing transferred to other people in a way that was as close to identical as I possibly could. I wanted everybody in the team to be able to add 2 plus 2 and get 4, right? I wanted that level of consistency. And so how do I train people to be able to replicate, right? And this is the whole reason that we built 40% Better, was to solve that problem of inconsistent leadership, of inconsistent execution of philosophical perspectives. And, you know, frankly, if you don't all have a level playing field of this is how this works, you will get inconsistent outcomes. I mean, that's the way it works, right? When we look at highly successful, very repetitious kinds of activities that also do include a layer of creativity in them, we find that the underpinning is consistent, repeatable processes. It's very much systems thinking. And this is, you know, on the one hand, surgery, right? People going to do surgery know that human bodies are going to be different. We all have different bone structure, bone lengths, body fat levels, muscle strength or not, torn ligaments in different ways. All these different things people, surgeons, are going to work on. But they have these structured processes that give them a baseline so that when they are being creative because of the variance of human bodies, they can handle it, right? It's a small variable in the whole process. When I was a first responder and I was a rescue swimmer, when I was going into the ocean to go get somebody, or somebody, multiple people at times, I knew that on the beach, the rest of the lifeguards, the rest of the people that were involved, they were all moving to cover my area so that I could be focused on what was in front of me, right? I didn't have to worry about what was behind me anymore because they were covering behind me. We had standardized processes for that to make sure that the coverage happened. You need this when you're doing team leadership. You need to have a structure and a system, and you need to understand, A, why we're doing this from a philosophical perspective, what's our strategic perspective, and you need to have very well understood tactics to achieve those goals, right? To be able to execute and move forward. And even though people are different and they will be doing different kinds of things, you're operating in a consistent fashion so that everybody has a strong foundation. And this is why this is such a beautiful model, right? We'll be doing more of these videos, be going into more detail about it, but you have to understand the difference between having a philosophical perspective and how do you break down the execution into little, teeny, tiny, successful baby steps. Hope you're having a good one. Thanks.